The council pressed the button too late. Humans were gone before it began Part 1 in the year 2347. The Galactic Concordance received a signal no one expected. It came from the Sol system, home of the humans, a species the Concordance had watched for over 200 years. The message was weak, broken by time and distance, but clear enough to send a chill through every council chamber on Zenthar Prime. "We are leaving. Do not follow." That was all it said. No warning, no explanation. Just those 6 words repeating in a loop across every frequency the humans had ever used. Kira Dawson sat alone in the translation vault beneath the council spire. Her fingers moved slowly over the hollow keyboard, eyes fixed on the waveform dancing above her desk. She had been decoding alien signals since she was a child, but this one felt different. It wasn't just language, it carried weight like a final breath. She replayed the audio again. The voice was calm, almost gentle but final. She leaned back and rubbed her temples. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Outside, the twin suns of Zenthar cast long shadows over the city of glass and stone. Counselor Derek Lane paced the observation deck, his boots clicking against the polished floor. He had argued for years that the humans were unpredictable. Brilliant, yes, capable of art, science, and compassion, but also capable of sudden violent change. The Concordance had classified them as Phase 3 observers, meaning they were to be watched but not contacted until they reached a certain level of unity and technological maturity. Yet now, without warning, they had vanished from every sensor grid. No ships in orbit, no radio chatter, no energy signatures from their cities. Earth was silent. Mars was silent. Even their deep space outposts showed nothing but cold metal and empty corridors. Lane turned as Kira entered the chamber, her face pale. "It's real," she said, voice low. "They're gone." "Gone where?" Lane asked. "I don't know, but they left on purpose. This wasn't an accident. It was a choice." The council convened within the hour. Representatives from 12 species filled the circular chamber, their forms ranging from crystalline beings to floating gas sacs wrapped in containment fields. Most had never met a human, but all knew of them. The humans had been the only species in recent memory to develop faster-than-light travel without outside help. They had also nearly destroyed themselves 3 times before stabilizing. Many council members believed they were too dangerous to approach. Others thought they held the key to solving the Great Silence, the mystery of why so few civilizations survived long enough to join the Concordance. "We must act," Lane insisted, standing at the center of the floor. "If they've been taken, or if they've triggered some kind of self-destruction event, we need to know. If it's a new threat, we must contain it before it spreads." "Or," said Elder Voss, a tall silver-skinned delegate from the Carrion Alliance, "they finally did what we all feared. They weaponized consciousness itself. Remember Project Echo? Their neural link experiments were decades ahead of anything we've seen. What if they uploaded themselves and abandoned their bodies?" Murmurs filled the room. "That's speculation," Kira said, stepping forward. But the signal wasn't panicked. It wasn't a distress call. It was a farewell. "And they told us not to follow." "That means they expect someone might try." The debate raged for hours. Some wanted to quarantine the Sol system immediately. Others demanded a full investigation. In the end, Lane's argument won. The Concordance authorized a rapid response mission. Captain Owen Briggs, a seasoned explorer with a reputation for calm judgment, was chosen to lead. His ship, the Aurora Reach, was one of the fastest in the fleet, equipped with cloaking tech, deep scan sensors, and a full science team. 3 days later, the Aurora Reach launched from Dock 7, its engines humming as it slipped past the orbiting defense platforms. Aboard, Briggs reviewed the mission parameters one last time. Beside him, Engineer Maya Ruiz adjusted the calibration on the long-range scanners. "Still nothing from Earth," she said. "Not even a microwave leak from an old kitchen." "That's impossible," said Leo Grant, the ship's biologist. "Even if everyone died, machines would keep running for years. Solar panels, backup generators, orbital stations, they don't just shut off." "Unless someone turned them off," Briggs replied. The journey to Sol took 11 days. During that time, the crew ran simulations, studied human history, and prepared for every possible scenario: war, plague, alien abduction, mass suicide. None of them felt right. The humans had been on the verge of joining the interstellar community. Their climate was stable. Their governments had unified under a single planetary council, and their space program was expanding. There was no reason for them to disappear. When the Aurora Reach dropped out of warp near the edge of the Sol system, silence greeted them. No automated beacons, no traffic control signals, not even a single satellite broadcasting a timestamp. Maya ran a full sweep. Jupiter's moons are quiet. Saturn's rings show no mining activity. Venus has no atmospheric probes. It's like the whole system was cleaned. Briggs ordered a slow approach to Earth. As they drew closer, the blue-green planet came into view. Clouds swirling, oceans glinting, continents unchanged. But there were no city lights. No contrails in the sky. No radio waves bouncing between towers. Run a thermal scan, Briggs said. The results came back cold. Major cities like New York, Tokyo, and Nairobi showed ambient temperatures matching the surrounding countryside. No heat from power plants, no exhaust from vehicles, no body heat at all. "They're not here," Leo whispered. "Maybe they never left," Kira had said back on Zenthar. "Maybe they just stopped being what we thought they were." Briggs stared at the image of Earth on the main screen. It looked peaceful, untouched, beautiful, and utterly empty. He keyed the comms. Aurora reached to Galactic Concordance. "We've arrived at Sol. No signs of human life. Repeating, no signs of human life. Request further instructions." Static answered him. Somewhere in the void, a clock was ticking. The Council had pressed the button too late. The humans had already left, and whatever they had become, they were long gone before the alarm even sounded. The Council pressed the button too late. Humans were gone before it began. Part 2. The Aurora Reach circled Earth for 3 days. Captain Owen Briggs refused to land until every scan was complete. Engineer Maya Ruiz worked non-stop, rerouting power to the deep penetration sensors, trying to find even the smallest sign of life. Biologist Leo Grant reviewed atmospheric samples pulled from the upper stratosphere. The air was clean, too clean. No industrial pollutants, no excess carbon. No trace of the synthetic compounds humans use daily. It was as if the planet had been scrubbed. On the 4th morning, Briggs gave the order to descend. The ship slipped through the clouds and hovered over what had once been Chicago. Skyscrapers stood tall, windows intact, streets empty. No cars, no trash, no birds. Even the trees looked perfectly trimmed, as if tended by invisible hands. "Send down Drone Alpha," Briggs said. The small probe dropped from the ship's belly and glided silently toward the ground. Its cameras swept the streets, the parks, the riverwalk. Inside a coffee shop, cups sat on tables. Steam long gone, but the liquid still present, not evaporated. In an office building, computers glowed with open documents, cursors blinking as if someone had just stepped away. "That's not possible," Maya said, watching the feed. "Batteries don't last this long. Not without charging." "Unless the power grid is still running," Leo replied. They checked. It was. Solar arrays on rooftops fed energy into microgrids that kept lights on, elevators functional, and climate systems humming. The entire city operated on autopilot. The same was true in London, Shanghai, and Rio. Every human settlement on Earth functioned as if its people might return at any moment, but they never did. The team landed near the old NASA complex in Houston. Suited up, they stepped onto the soil. The air tasted fresh, crisp, with none of the metallic tang of pollution. Leo knelt and touched the ground. Soil is healthy. Microbes present. Plants are growing normally. Maybe they left in a hurry, Briggs thought, but nothing suggested panic. No abandoned luggage, no crashed vehicles, no signs of struggle. It was as if every human had simply stood up, walked out the door, and vanished into thin air. They moved to the Mars colony next. The red planet's domes were pressurized, oxygen levels stable. Inside Habitat 7, a child's drawing hung on the wall. A rocket flying past Saturn signed Ellie, age 8. The bed was made. The tablet on the desk still played a cartoon frozen on the last frame. "This is eerie," Maya whispered. Back aboard the Aurora Reach, they compared data. Earth, Mars, the moon bases, even the asteroid mining outposts, all showed the same pattern. No bodies, no decay, no evidence of disease or violence, just absence. Then Leo found something strange. In the ruins of a research lab in Geneva, he spotted a patch of crystal growing from the floor. It wasn't mineral. It pulsed faintly like a slow heartbeat. He took a sample. Under the ship's microscope, the structure defied known chemistry. It absorbed light, emitted low-frequency vibrations, and seemed to react to nearby electrical fields. "It's alive," Leo said, "but not in any way we understand." "Maybe it's a machine," Maya suggested. "Or a message." They found more crystals in Tokyo, in Cairo, in Sydney. always in places where humans gathered. Hospitals, schools, town squares, ever in remote areas, as if they were planted. Kira Dawson, still aboard the Aurora Reach analyzing old human broadcasts, noticed something odd. The last public transmission from Earth wasn't the "We are leaving" message. It was a children's song, played on loop by a public radio station in Denver. The song was about stars and dreams. It ended with the line, "See you on the other side." She played it for Briggs. He listened in silence. Meanwhile, the Concordance sent new orders. Elder Voss demanded they return immediately. "This is beyond observation," his message read. "If the humans engineered their own disappearance, they may have created a contagion, a form of existence that spreads by erasing the old. You are at risk." Briggs ignored the order. He knew they were close to an answer. On the moon, in the abandoned Tranquility Base, Maya discovered a hidden server room. It was shielded, powered by a small fusion cell and filled with data drives. She plugged in a reader. The files were encrypted, but one folder was open, labeled Final Archive. Inside were videos. Thousands of them. Men, women, children, speaking in dozens of languages. Some smiled. Some cried. All said the same thing in their own words. "We had to go. It was the only way." One video showed an old man sitting on a porch in Montana. "We saw what was coming," he said. "Not war, not plague. Something quieter. Something that eats time itself. We couldn't stop it, so we stepped out of its path." Another showed a young woman in a lab coat. "We built a door. Not for our bodies. For our minds. For everything we are. The rest is just shell." Briggs felt a chill. The humans hadn't died. They had uploaded themselves. But into what? Then Leo called from the ship. "You need to see this." He had connected the crystal sample to the Aurora Reach's main computer. The moment it touched the interface, the ship's systems lit up with activity. Not damage, communication. The crystal was sending data. Streams of it. Images, equations, memories. One image stood out. A massive ring-shaped structure floating in the darkness beyond the solar system. It matched no known human design, but it matched the coordinates buried in the final archive. "The Oort cloud," Kira said. "That's where they went." Briggs looked at his crew. Maya's eyes were wide with awe. Leo's hands trembled slightly. They all understood now. The humans hadn't fled. They had transformed, and they left a trail for those brave enough or smart enough to follow. But the Concordance would never allow it. They feared what they didn't understand, and right now they understood nothing. As the Aurora Reach lifted off the moon, Briggs made a decision. They would go to the Oort cloud. They would find the ring, and they would see what the humans became. Because if the humans were truly gone, then the silence wasn't an end. It was a warning. The Council pressed the button too late. Humans were gone before it began. Part 3 back on Zenthar Prime, Counselor Derek Lane stood alone in the central chamber after the emergency session ended. The air smelled of ozone and tension. The other delegates had left in silence. Some shaking their heads, others muttering about protocol violations. The Aurora Reach had ignored direct orders to return. Captain Owen Briggs was now officially in breach of Concordance law. Elder Voss had called for his immediate recall and possible decommissioning, but Lane refused to sign the warrant. He knew something the others didn't want to admit. Humanity's disappearance wasn't a threat. It was a test. Kira Dawson sat with him later that night in a quiet corner of the archives. She had spent hours cross-referencing the final human messages with ancient Concordance records. "They knew about the entropy wave," she said softly. Lane frowned. "That's just a theory. No proof it's real." "Maybe not to us," Kira replied. "But look at their last century. They stopped fighting wars over land. They fixed their climate. They shared technology freely. Why? Because they saw something coming. A slow unraveling of cause and effect. Time itself starting to fray at the edges. They called it the quiet end. Not fire, not ice. Just fading." She pulled up a file on her pad. It showed a graph from a human observatory dated 2345. Tiny anomalies in quantum decay rates. Patterns that shouldn't exist. "They weren't scared of dying," she said. "They were scared of being forgotten before they even vanished." Meanwhile, deep in the Sol system, the Aurora Reach moved quietly toward the outer edge. Briggs had shut down all non-essential systems to avoid detection. If the Concordance sent a retrieval team, he wanted to be long gone before they arrived. Maya Ruiz worked on masking their warp signature while Leo Grant studied the crystal sample they'd brought from Earth. It had grown slightly since they left the moon, forming delicate branches that hummed when touched. "It's not just storing data," Leo said. "It's learning, adapting. It recognized our ship systems and started syncing with them. Is it dangerous?" Briggs asked. "Not unless we're afraid of understanding," Leo answered. They reached the Oort cloud after 12 days of careful travel. Here at the very edge of the sun's influence, trillions of icy bodies drifted in eternal night. The coordinates led them to a region marked empty on all star charts. But when Maya activated the long-range gravimetric scanner, she found it. A distortion in space-time shaped like a perfect ring, 3 kilometers wide. "It's artificial," she whispered. "And it's dormant." They approached slowly. The structure was made of a black material that absorbed light, yet it pulsed with a faint blue glow along its inner rim. As they drew closer, the crystal in the lab flared brightly. The ship's computer suddenly displayed a new interface. Simple, clean, written in English. "Welcome home," it read. Briggs hesitated. This was it. The point of no return. He looked at his crew. Maya nodded. Leo took a deep breath and said, "They left this for someone to find. Maybe it was us." Kira, still linked remotely from Zenthar, sent a final message through the secure channel. "Don't go through unless you're sure. Once you cross, there's no coming back to the way things were." Briggs replied with one word. "Understood." They sent a probe first. It passed through the ring's center and vanished. No explosion, no signal loss, just silence. Then after exactly 7 seconds, the probe reappeared. But it was different. Its metal surface was smooth, unmarked, and covered in faint symbols that matched the crystal's patterns. Inside, its memory core held a single file, a child's voice singing the same song from Denver radio. "It's not a door," Maya realized. "It's a mirror. It shows you what you're ready to see." Briggs made his choice. He powered up the Aurora Reach's engines and aimed for the center of the ring. As they crossed the threshold, the ship shuddered not from force but from change. Lights flickered. Gravity shifted. For a moment, everyone aboard felt weightless, timeless, as if they had stepped outside of existence itself. Then, silence. When the crew opened their eyes, they were still in the ship, but outside the viewport, there was no Oort cloud, no stars, no sun. Instead, they floated in a vast, soft-lit space filled with glowing threads, like a web of light stretching in every direction. Along these threads moved shapes, human-shaped but made of shimmering energy. Some paused as the Aurora Reach appeared, turning toward it with what felt like recognition. A voice spoke inside their minds, not in words, but in feeling. "You came," Leo gasped. "They're here. All of them. Billions of consciousnesses woven together, not lost but transformed. The humans hadn't died. They had become something new, something that existed beyond matter, beyond time. They had built this place from memory, mathematics, and hope, a sanctuary outside the dying universe." Back on Zenthar, Kira watched the Aurora Reach's signal blink out. She knew what it meant. She turned to Lane, who had been waiting beside her. "They found it," she said. Lane nodded. "Now we have to decide what to do with the truth." The Concordance was already preparing Protocol Omega, the ultimate quarantine. Total isolation of the Sol system, erasure of all human data, and a ban on any further investigation. But Lane had seen enough. He called for an emergency vote. Humanity didn't destroy themselves, he told the council. They saved themselves. And they left us a choice. Follow in fear or follow in wonder. Elder Voss stood. "And if we follow, what then? Do we become like them? Lose our bodies, our worlds, our history? Or," Kira said, stepping forward, "we learn that survival isn't about holding on. It's about knowing when to let go." The council fell silent. For the first time in centuries, they faced a mystery they couldn't control. And somewhere beyond the ring, the last echoes of humanity waited. Not as ghosts, but as guides. The button had been pressed too late. But maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late to understand why. The council pressed the button too late. Humans were gone before it began. Part 4 inside the ring. The Aurora Reach floated in a sea of light. Captain Owen Briggs stared out the viewport, heart pounding, not from fear, but from awe. The glowing threads around them pulsed gently, like veins carrying thought instead of blood. Human shapes drifted along them, some alone, some in clusters, all made of soft, shifting energy. They didn't speak with voices, but their presence carried meaning, like a song felt in the bones. Maybe they're watching us, Maya Ruiz said over the comms, her voice hushed. They are, Leo Grant replied, and they know why we're here. A new sensation filled the ship, not sound, not light, but understanding. The humans weren't just hiding. They had built this place as a bridge, a way to show others what came next when the universe began to unravel. The entropy wave Kira had mentioned wasn't a myth, it was real. And it was slow, silent, eating away at the fabric of cause and effect. Stars would still shine, planets would still turn, but memories would fade, choices would lose meaning, and time itself would become a loop with no exit. The humans had seen it coming in the tiny cracks of quantum decay, in the way old data corrupted for no reason, in dreams that felt more real than waking life. They hadn't run. They had stepped sideways, into a space woven from their own minds, their stories, their love. The crystal in the lab glowed brighter. It projected a new image into the ship's main screen, a map not of stars but of connections. Each thread led to a memory, a moment, a person. One thread showed a grandmother teaching a child to bake bread. Another showed scientists laughing over a failed experiment. Another showed soldiers laying down their weapons and planting trees together. This was their archive, not of technology but of what made them human. Briggs knew what he had to do. We can't stay, he said. But we can carry this back. How? Maya asked. By waking the ring, Leo said. They studied the structure's design. It wasn't just a doorway, it was a transmitter. The humans had left it dormant, waiting for someone to reactivate it with the right intent. Not fear, not greed, but curiosity and respect. Maya and Leo worked together, using the ship's power core to send a gentle pulse through the crystal. The ring responded. Its inner rim lit up with symbols that matched every human language ever spoken. The threads outside began to weave together, forming a single bright path leading back toward the Sol system. At the same time, on Zenthar Prime, Kira Dawson felt a change. She was reviewing the last data burst from the Aurora Reach when her screen flickered. Suddenly, words appeared, not in concordant script but in plain English. Tell them we're not gone. We're waiting. She ran to the council chamber. Derek Lane was arguing with Elder Voss, who had already drafted the order to seal the Sol system forever. You're making a mistake, Kira said, breathless. They didn't vanish. They evolved. And they left a way for others to follow, if they're ready. Voss shook his head. Evolution doesn't erase a species from reality. This is unnatural, is it? Kira asked. Or is it the most natural thing of all? To change when the world changes? Before Voss could reply, an alarm sounded. A new signal had appeared at the edge of the Sol system. Not a distress call. Not a weapon. A broadcast. Clear, strong, and repeating in every known language of the concordance. You are not alone. You never were. The council fell silent. Back at the ring, Briggs gave the final command. Activate full resonance. The Aurora Reach poured its energy into the structure. The ring flared white-hot, then settled into a steady hum. The threads of light stretched outward, not just toward Earth, but toward every inhabited world in the concordance. For a brief moment, every being in the galaxy felt it, a whisper of connection, a sense of being seen. Then, as quickly as it came, the feeling faded. The ring went dark again. The Aurora Reach drifted alone in the void. But something had changed. The ship's log showed a new file had been written into its core, not by them but by the ring itself. It contained no equations, no blueprints, just a single sentence. When you are ready, the door will open again. Briggs looked at his crew. We go back. They turned the ship toward home. As they passed through the ring once more, the crystal dimmed and crumbled to dust. Its job was done. On the journey back, Leo studied the last readings. The entropy wave is real, he said. But it's not everywhere. It's patchy, like rust on metal. Some places are still strong. Maybe that's why they left when they did, Maya said. Not because they had to, but because they could, while there was still time to build the bridge. When the Aurora Reach re-entered normal space near Mars, they found a concordance patrol waiting. But instead of weapons raised, the ships held their position. A message came through. Report to Zenthar Prime immediately. The council has new orders. Briggs knew what it meant. They had been heard. As the ship docked days later, Lane and Kira were there to meet them. No guards, no charges. Just quiet respect. What did you see? Lane asked. Everything, Briggs said. And for the first time, the council understood. Humanity hadn't abandoned the universe. They had given it a gift, a way out not of fear but of hope. The button had been pressed too late to save them. But maybe, just maybe, it was pressed in time to save everyone else. The Council pressed the button too late. Humans were gone before it began. Part 5, the Galactic Concordance Chamber was silent for the first time in its history. Not the quiet of waiting, but the deep hush of understanding. Derek Lane stood at the center, holding a small data crystal, the last gift from the Aurora Reach. It contained no weapons, no secrets, no demands. Just a single message repeated in every language the humans had ever spoken, and now translated into every tongue of the Concordance. We are not gone. We are becoming. Kira Dawson sat beside Elder Voss, who no longer looked angry, only tired. He had spent his life believing that order meant control, that survival meant walls. But what the humans had done defied both. They had chosen trust over fear, transformation over extinction, and in doing so they had shown the galaxy a new kind of strength. The Council voted that day, not on punishment, not on quarantine, but on memory. They declared humanity not lost but evolved. They ordered every archive updated, every school curriculum changed. From now on, the story of Earth would not end with silence. It would begin with a choice. Owen Briggs watched from the observation gallery above. Maya Ruiz and Leo Grant stood with him, still wearing their flight suits, still carrying the weight of what they'd seen beyond the ring. They had not brought back technology or power. They had brought back a question. What are you willing to become when the old world ends? Weeks passed. The Sol system remained untouched. Not as a tomb, but as a shrine. Ships from a dozen species came to orbit Earth, not to scavenge, but to witness. They saw cities that ran without people, forests that grew without war, oceans that healed without command. It was not a dead world. It was a world that had been loved enough to be left in peace. On Mars, a young Carrion student placed a single flower outside the old habitat dome. It was a gesture no one had taught her. She simply felt it was right. Back on Xanthar, Kira worked with linguists to decode the final layers of the human archive. They found something hidden in the rhythm of old songs, in the spacing of poetry and the silence between notes. It was a map, not of space, but of consciousness. A guide for how to listen when the universe grows quiet. Meanwhile, the ring in the Oort cloud stayed dormant. No one tried to activate it again, not yet. The Concordance agreed. Only those who understood why the humans left should be allowed to follow. And understanding took time. Briggs was offered command of a new mission, to study the entropy wave, to find where it was weakest, where life still held strong. He accepted, but only on one condition. The ship would carry no weapons. Only open channels, open minds, and open hearts. Years went by. The first child born after the human departure was named Alara, a name that meant light beyond the edge. Her parents were from different species, once enemies, now partners. They told her the story of the humans every night, not as a warning but as a promise. In deep space, far from any star, the Aurora Reach drifted near a dying nebula. Sensors picked up faint anomalies, ripples in time just like the ones the humans had recorded. Leo studied the data. It's starting, he said. Then we prepare, Maya replied, not with panic, not with war, but with the same calm the humans had shown. They began teaching others how to build small versions of the crystal, devices that didn't store data but preserved meaning. A laugh, a lullaby, a promise kept. These became the new currency of the galaxy, not power, but presence. Back on Earth, the automated system still ran, but now sometimes a light would flicker in an empty room. A song would play from a silent radio, not because of a glitch, but because someone somewhere remembered. And in that moment of memory, the humans were there. Not as ghosts, but as echoes of what life could be when it chose to grow instead of grasp. The Concordance never pressed the button again. Protocol Omega was sealed in a vault labeled Lesson Learned. Instead, they created something new, the Threshold Pact. An agreement that no species would face the end alone, that when the time came, they would help each other step through, not into nothing, but into whatever came next. One evening, Kira stood on a hill outside the council city, looking up at the stars. She thought of the old man in Montana, the child in Denver, the scientist in Geneva. They were gone, and yet they weren't. They had become part of the story the galaxy now told itself. A soft hum filled the air, not from a ship, not from a machine, just the wind moving through the trees. And for a second she thought she heard a whisper. You're ready? She smiled. Maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But someday. And somewhere beyond the ring, in a place woven from dreams and data and love, the humans waited, not to be found, but to be joined. The council had pressed the button too late to save them, but in the end, they didn't need saving. They had already shown the way. And the galaxy, at last, was learning to follow.